What is your I better get the frick out of here now, because some crap is about to go down story. My friends and I were in an In-N-Out Burger in LA about 10 years ago. We saw one guy go into the restroom, closely followed by about 8 more. Suddenly there was an incredible ruckus from the bathroom, bodies slamming into the walls repeatedly, sounds like sinks being torn off the walls, but no speaking or yelling whatsoever. Luckily, there was a security guard in the restaurant. He listened for a moment, stood up, and then jogged to his car and drove away. Needless to say, we didn't stick around to see what was going on in there, but it couldn't have been good. I laughed so hard at the image of the one guy whose job it is to keep the peace, listening for a moment, realizing he isn't paid nearly enough for that crap and just bailing. If security bails, it's definitely time to go. I was slipped a roofie of some kind when I was overseas. I was chatting up this beautiful German girl and having a good time with a small group of 2 other Americans and this girl, another female friend of hers and her male friend. The male friend was really cool and assured me they weren't an item. The group slowly dissipated and it was just me and this girl and her male friend. Can't remember what it was exactly, but something made me think, okay, these 2 are a team and he is offering her as bait to rob me or whatever. Then I started feeling really out of it and weird and almost passing out suddenly from some of the drinks. I had the presence of mind to immediately grab my friend 10 feet away and basically tell him, don't let these 2 out of your sight. Don't let me out of your sight. You need to get me out of here safely because I've been drugged and I think I'm about to pass out and they are up to something. I was in and out of consciousness as my buddy prevented the German guy and his girlfriend from the old "hey, we'll take care of him, don't worry" routine. I paid for all my buddy's drinks the rest of the trip because he got me out of there safe and sound, and I woke up in our hotel with no idea of how I got there. I didn't realize I have to watch my drink too. This happened about 12-13 years ago. I was about 10 years old at the time. Me and my father were sitting in our car having food at a food truck. While we were sitting there, some drunk men came and parked right in front of us, blocking our way. After some time the car behind us honked so they could leave. My dad honked at the car in front of us, but they just waved at us saying they're not moving. My dad went out and told this to the car behind us. Those were 2 young men as well. They went and asked him to move. Drunk men again gave some vulgar sign and told them to frick off. This dude straight up punched the window, breaking it. Drunk men came out to fight, while my dad just picked me up and walked away from the scene. We were watching from a distance when the dude who was behind us took his gun out and shot the drunk car guy in the head point blank. Then they calmly walked back to their car and since everyone ran away, backed up their car and went their way. I have a few more, but this was on top of my mind. And this is why you don't just start crap with random people, thinking you're a badass. Eventually you'll find someone that doesn't give a crap about you or society's rules and will treat you like an animal to be slaughtered. I was visiting Belgium with my dad a couple of years back. I love arcades and found one in Oostende where we were staying. I was spending a couple of hours of my free time in there while my dad was round the corner in a sports bar watching football. I was playing a game of pinball when I noticed this guy who was just hanging around near me, not really doing anything, just staring in another direction towards some games. I finished my game and started to leave. He followed me. I noticed this and stopped and pretended to browse some of the prizes you can win with tickets. He stopped as well and pretended to look around. At this point I swiftly walked straight out the arcade. He followed me and as soon as we were on the street a guy leaning against the wall joined up with him and followed me about 10 feet back. These 2 were the worst muggers ever and I picked up on it straight away. They were obviously thinking I was going to walk home, if I was local and even lived there, and wait until we got out of the city center to try something. I went round the bend at the end of the road and straight into the sports bar where my dad was. They didn't follow me in and just kept walking past. I breathed a sigh of relief and enjoyed the rest of my evening. When you said Belgium and arcade, I immediately thought, oh no, it's going to be pedo story. I'm a bit relieved and glad you were okay. I was driving back to school after Thanksgiving break in the rain about 8 years ago, and as I pass by an exit I see a pickup coming down the entrance ramp next to me really fast, like recklessly fast. I think to myself I better get ahead of this guy so I don't have to deal with merging with him, so I put my foot on the gas. About 10 seconds later I look in my rear view mirror to see the pickup about 100 feet behind me spinning across all 4 lanes. Then a semi which was trying to swerve to avoid him collides and smashes him straight into the barrier as it turns fully sideways across the highway. Huge bang sound as the pickup basically disintegrated. I had to pull over at the next rest stop just to calm down. My uncle and stepfather were drinking late at night, watching TV while me and a few others were just chilling in the living room. I was 15 I think. There was some shouting outside on our street. We all went out on the porch to gawk and saw our neighbor, an old man, being dragged around on the asphalt by some young guy. My uncle with his drunken bravado strutted into the middle of it and he and the young man started to push each other. Then my uncle pulled out a switchblade and the guy ran into the old man's house. That's when I decided to go back inside and watch from a window with the phone in my hand. Sure enough, the dude came back out with a butcher knife. The two of them started to struggle, my stepfather jumped in to break it up, and he ended up getting stabbed in the back by the young dude. I called the police and we ended up in the hospital all night waiting to see if my stepfather would live. He did, with a punctured lung and a lot of recovery time. That actually went better than I thought it would from that first sentence. I was doing a semester abroad in London. At the time there were concerns about bombings on the underground trains. During our orientation one of our guides mentioned that, if you ever heard a voice on the underground PA system ask for Inspector Sands, that was code to alert the underground staff that there was some kind of emergency without panicking the riders. One night, after class, I stopped at a restaurant. It was a McDonald's. Sue me, and the cashier forgot my order, causing my meal to be delayed. Once I got my food and finished eating, I headed to the nearest tube station to board a train home, and heard, playing on repeat, "Will Inspector Sands report to the office?" or something similar. I then noticed that a horde of police cars was converging on the area. I turned right the frick around and took a bus home. Turns out it wasn't a bombing. Someone had pushed someone else onto the tracks in front of a train. Still, I thought for half a second that a crappy McDonald's cashier might have saved me from getting blown up. When I was a kid, I was trick-or-treating with 3 of my friends. One friend and I looked back and saw that these notorious local bully older kids were following us. So we kind of tried to gesture whisper to our other 2 friends like, "Come on guys, let's GFTO. It's bully guy and his bully friends." Well, our 2 friends were too cool to be scared. So me and the one friend started walking much faster, putting a large distance between us and our friends the bullies. Our friends even called out something like, "Haha, where are you guys going?" Sure enough, the bullies suddenly ran up, beat up our 2 friends and stole their Halloween candy. I was a classic kid who followed classic kid rules. You see a gang of older bullies, you go away as fast as you can. I may not be cool but at least I have candy. Front stage for Lamb of God, I think maybe 2012ish. Suddenly people started leaving before the next song. What I didn't realize at the time was I was in the middle of a world record attempt at the largest wall of death at a festival. I haven't noped any harder than that, I don't think. I was doing charity work in high school, just outside of a smaller mountain city in Guatemala, Jalapa. We took one afternoon off to head into the city and check out the markets and whatnot. Riding around the city in the bed of pickup trucks, about 15 of us, extremely common there, we noticed that there wasn't much activity and a lot of the shops were closed. A local who recognized our organization started yelling when we drove by and flagged us down, so we stopped. He was in the middle of setting up a roadblock and basically told us to get the frick out of the city as fast as possible. Reason being, there was a big protest riot planned for that day against Canadian mining operations taking advantage of the surrounding regions. This is a small, almost third world, militaristic Central American country. Every single one of us was Canadian. We could have very easily become the perfect bargaining tool for these rebel groups. Needless to say, we got out of there as quick as humanly possible. Good guy local. I was at Red Rocks Amphitheater in Colorado for a NAS show. I left the concert early to grab something out of my car. On the way, I passed a suspicious looking individual, who moments later fired off a shotgun into the air. I sprinted all the way to my car. It turns out this maniac was trying to kill one of the openers. Schoolboy Q. Nobody was hurt, and it barely even made the news, but a lot of people could have died if he made it inside the concert. Went home from college the summer before my senior year. Met an old crush of mine and she invited me to a party. I walked to the address and it was this horrible, broken down house in a bad part of town. Went inside and recognized most of the people there as old co-students from high school. Had a good time drinking and smoking with them. I was pretty straight lace in high school. I couldn't find my crush, so I went exploring the house. Found her a few other people shooting up H in one of the rooms. I'm not a fan of being around intravenous drugs, so I immediately left. I was only one house away before 3 cop cars started coming toward the house. I casually sat down on the other house's stoop and lit a cigarette. Watched people in the party get arrested until the cops were all looking away. Walked away into the night. Raider 9 a preseason game. I got free tickets so I brought my girlfriend with me since she had never been to a football game. Game was at Candlestick Park, which is in the ghetto in SF. Game was rowdy from the start with fights breaking out all over the stadium. I made a point to not drink because I wanted to have my wits about me the whole time. It got so crazy that we left early, and as we were leaving, a bunch of cops and ambulances were headed towards the stadium. We got out of the city and my bros started texting me asking if I was okay cause there were shootings. Never felt so uncomfortable at a sporting event in my life. Raider 9er, you need not say more. If anyone is curious, a lot of these stories involve what we call in the military a change in the baseline. Basically, if something is the same way every day and one day it's not at all. For example, an empty marketplace which is normally packed. Run fast. Something bad is about to happen. The idiot I am would be like, oh sweet, no line at the food stalls. A few years ago a friend of mine invited me to a college party at the University of Kentucky during winter break. When I arrived, he greeted me on the porch and asked if I wanted to hotbox his car. I agreed and we proceeded to go smoke a couple bowls. During the second bowl, someone ran past carrying a Christmas tree over their shoulder, jetted across the street and darted into a house. We both had a moment of did that just happen before laughing and going to pack another bowl. Suddenly someone tapped on my window. My friend looked up and said, "Oh, it's cool, that's the host of the party." So I rolled down my window. The host asks, "Hey, did someone just run past here with a Christmas tree?" We laugh and say, "Yeah, he just went into that house across the street," and pointed to the house. The host says thanks, pulls out a handgun, readies it, marches across the street and starts pounding on the door of the house. My friend and I look at each other, say let's get the frick out of here, and pulled away. Then we went to Waffle House and it was great. Dodge a situation by going to a Waffle House. That's a frickin' twist. Not me but a friend of mine. I was with a guy who knew some pretty hardcore parties, so I went with him. We walked in and the first thing I notice in the house is a pile of C on the table and a pistol on the bar. My friend told me we need to GTFO. We passed 3 police cruisers headed to the party. On the way out, they busted the place right after we left. At least he's the type of partier to know when it's safe and when it's not. A few times have I tagged along to this party's gonna be sweet and it was either shot and nobody is there or entirely too crowded and fights happening, so I just bounce. I was at this open air nightclub in Montezuma, Costa Rica. The group I was traveling with went to bed, so I was at the bar by myself, drinking Imperial and taking in the scene. I was really drunk. The bar was packed and loud and hot and humid. The crowd consisted of young local guys with their girlfriends, stray dogs walking around the dance floor, and a group of high school girls, American or Canadian, with 2 older male chaperones, in their mid-30s early 40s. The high school girls were all dancing with the 2 teachers and were taking turns making out with them in a strange and systematic manner, almost like they were brainwashed. The 2 teachers were having the time of their lives, glancing at each other with huge grins on their faces between makeout sessions with the underage girls. I'm totally engrossed in their group dynamic when suddenly a military truck full of police officers with assault rifles pulls up to the bar and swarms in. All the young Costa Ricans take off running in all directions. The bar had no walls, so it emptied pretty fast. The high school's girls and their teachers ran away too. The cops sprint out of the bar, following the Costa Rican guys into the darkness. I remained glued to my bar stool, beer in hand, mouth agape, brow furrowed, By the time I realized I better get the frick out of here, it was already over. I sat there alone. Just me, my beer, and a couple stray dogs. Maybe if I remain perfectly still they won't notice me. You have been spotted by the rare flying floofer. If you comment good boy below he don't steal your hot dogs anymore. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video, or don't. Either way, have a great day you magnificent people.